She's an award-winning YouTuber and best-selling author obsessed with helping you go after the life you want.
I like it.
Join her as she seeks out the stories and strategies
Give me every little detail.
of extraordinary people who found success.
I'm going to get emotional. Oh my God.
Welcome to Detail Therapy with Amy Landino.
I'll say this, a lot of times we think we can only have one passion, but when you get ready to transition to something, you'll be propelled to follow it and to do great things, but you have got to make sure that you know your stuff. Because when Rushia, the basketball player, walks into a room, there's no question that I can talk about the game and I know the game. But as a basketball player, people also limit me in a professional space. So I have to make sure that I'm well educated on whatever that realm is. And so I advise everyone to make sure, like, education is key, just knowing your stuff.
Good morning, good life. Welcome back to another episode of Detail Therapy. You just heard a little bit of my conversation with Rushia Brown. In this episode, we're going to be talking about powerful women, and Rushia is one of them. She is one of the people that not only played in the WNBA, she got to see it start, which was such a huge moment for women, both in and outside of sports. So we're going to talk about what that experience was like. We'll also be talking about identity. When you really put yourself full force into a hobby, it can become all-consuming. So how do you find out who you really are outside of that hobby? And also, along those lines, finding your passion. Rushia and I got to chat about how she found hers and how maybe it's not always what you expect it to be. We have a lot to get into today, but for those of you who are new to the show, my name is Amy Landino, and I will be your host. I'm a YouTube creator, podcaster, business coach, public speaker, and best-selling author. I'm here to help you go after the life that you want. You can find out more details about me by visiting youtube.com/AMYTV. Well, for those of you in the States, you're probably having a pretty great week this week because you know that it just might be a little bit of a shorter week depending on what your day-to-day life is like. It's definitely fun times in our office because we're leaving for the Thanksgiving holiday on Wednesday. So it's definitely going to be a lovely week of spending time with family. Vincenzo and I are going to be heading back to his hometown in Connecticut to have a lovely Italian dinner. Probably many Italian dinners, actually, including and not limited to the big Thanksgiving. And so we're really looking forward to that. We haven't been back in Connecticut for a little while. And so it's going to be nice to check in. And of course, spending some time with my family here in Columbus before we take off as well. So, you know, that time of year, right? We start to take stock of how much are we spending time with the ones we love? How much are we letting them know how much we appreciate them? How are we showing it? Have we been letting them in on what they mean to us? And it's a great time to reflect on that and maybe go the extra mile. Because yes, we should be doing it all the time. And do we? No, because should is a word that annoys us. But at the same time, we're not perfect and things happen and life gets busy and that's okay. And as long as you do have those moments where you can reflect and say, hey, I see you, I feel you, I appreciate you. Thank you for being a part of my life and my journey. As long as you do it, you're always better than you were the day before. So don't be regretful. Don't hold back when you see those family members this week. And as we start to have the touchy-feelies about the holiday season, let them know. Okay, that is my lesson for you. I don't want to waste a lot of time today because we have a really good conversation for you to listen to. And we're back at MGM this week. You might remember that I popped over to the Women's Leadership Conference and had a lot of conversations with amazing women. And I really appreciate MGM International for sponsoring these episodes so that I could go to their event, sit down with amazing women, and have the time of my life. I mean, that's just the best way to do business, if you ask me. And it's all because of MGM. So big thanks to them. So with that, let's get back over to that conference. Remember, it's a pretty lively atmosphere. So just like me and Rushia are quite lively, there might be some lively people behind us chatting. So hang tight with us in that conversational context of the situation. And let's get into it with my next guest. Rushia Brown is a former professional athlete with over a decade of experience in the game of basketball. She played for 7 years in the WNBA, and that career took her to Spain, France, Italy, Greece, and Korea. After retiring from her basketball career, Rushia began the Women's Professional Basketball Alumni Association to assist other professional female basketball players prepare and transition into a productive life after they leave the game. Let's get into it with Rushia. Rushia Brown, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Amy.
Why do you do what you do?
I feel like I have a platform that allows me to give energy and positivity to other people and be a dream facilitator. So I'm just excited to see people win.
I love that. And it's so interesting to me because we're going to talk about your career. You were a professional basketball player. I mean, for some time. You were around when the WNBA even started, which when I read that, I was like, I don't understand because you look like you're not even my age. So I'm like, that was a long time ago. What was being a basketball player in the women's league like at that time?
It was all the rave because it was the first time the NBA poured into a league. And with the NBA being the greatest brand of sports in the world, it's just being a little sister. And so it was just really exciting because you would go to a game and as a player, you would look on the sidelines and you'd see all the stars lined up to watch us play. And just the fanfare that came along with it in those first years. It was unlike anything I'd ever seen before. Yeah,
that's got to feel really good, right? Because it's probably such a major change in the landscape, but at the same time, so many people are supporting you at that moment, which is so huge for women in sports specifically. How do you feel like it's changed since then? Do you feel like women are getting the attention they deserve on the court or on the field or anywhere?
We've come a long way, but there's still a long way to go. I actually get access to the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I know all the behind the scenes, and it's just incredible how hard these women work and how still they don't get the notification or even the financial gratification, getting paid the same. It's just a lot that goes on. So, But we've come a long way, but it's only 23 years. And I know that seems like a long time, but it's always compared to the NBA, which is in 75 years. So there's a lot that still has to be done, but we are in a great place.
And you played basketball for 17 seasons, both here, in the States and internationally. Where did you play internationally?
I spent 10 years overseas. I played 2 years in Spain, 2 in France, 4 in Italy, 1 in Greece, and 1 in Korea.
Oh my gosh.
Loved every minute of it.
Fun?
It was incredible. Honey, I was living my best life. Just the fact that I could be in all these countries doing what I loved, had some free time. I would take my days off and go to a different country or do something fun. So I always had a great time.
That's so great. I mean, were you just focused on that? If you weren't focused on playing the game and practicing and doing what you needed to do, taking in the fact that you could travel while this is happening? And
it was so funny because basketball gave me so many friends. So when you play overseas, traditionally you have 2 other Americans that can be on a team. And if there's a team near you, you have the Americans. But I became friends with the young ladies that were on my team, the foreigners. Well, I was a foreigner, but the nationals. So they would take me to places that wasn't the touristy place. We would go to the traditional.
You need the insider. You need the local information.
Yes, it was incredible. So I had a great time.
That's awesome. So from playing basketball, when did you stop playing? When was your last year playing basketball yourself?
My last year was 2003.
Okay. And so what did you do after that? What does somebody do when you for 17 seasons, this has been your career and you're pretty much your whole life. I mean, reverse question, when did you start training to play basketball? You're probably pretty young, right?
Ironically enough, I was a late bloomer. I didn't pick up the ball till I was in the 10th grade.
Oh, wow.
And it was not my interest. I was kind of forced into it. My father passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I started getting into some trouble, and I needed something positive, so they put me into sports. And basketball ended up being the thing that saved me.
Wow. So still, that's a big chunk of your life. And so what did you do when it was like, okay, basketball's done, I'm ready for the next thing, but what was the next thing for you?
And I did not have a plan, which was not a good thing. And I was put in a position where I didn't know what I wanted to do. And so the first at least 3 months, my friends all hated me because every day I'd call and say, you want to go to lunch? What you doing? Let's go have a drink. Let's go shopping. And they were like, listen, I have a job.
We have things to do.
I cannot hang out with you all day because you have nothing to do. But I really was in a space where I did not know what I wanted to do. I retired because I was sick of injury. I played year round for 7 years because the WNBA is in the summer and I would play internationally during the winter and fall. So just 7 years year round, and my body started to break down. And so I stopped playing because I was, the injuries. And when I came home, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And basketball had been a part of me for so long. I didn't know who I was without the ball. And I ended up falling into a depression. And so the time that I spent when I wasn't trying to get my friends to have lunch or drinking with me, I was in the house, in bed all the time. And it took me having a conversation with some friends and then eventually a therapist to try and figure out what I needed to do to get myself out of that. And I found comfort in being around kids and basketball. So I started volunteering at the Boys and Girls Club, and then I started a company because the parents wanted me to train their kids. And I was like, yeah, I like doing that. And they was like, well, we'll pay you. And I was like, wow, I didn't even think about that. And so it ended up being a business. So I started doing just the things that I loved as I transitioned, and it just started to work for me.
So do you feel like you ever got to the heart of the issue that really struck you that would cause you to go into a depression? Or do you think that that's something you continue to deal with? I guess the back end of that question is, it's so fascinating when you do something that you're always on such a high, even with probably as taxing as it was on your body to play basketball. Mm-hmm. You've got crowds cheering for you. You're traveling all over the world. You've got teammates who are like helping each other because they need the help too. And that all that rallying that's happening. And then real life happens, like normal, cool, regular life happens. And it feels so much less than all of that stuff. Do you think that was a big part of it, or was there some other things that kind of went into your state after basketball?
You described it perfectly. There's such a drop off in the adrenaline and just going from a rock star to being a normal person, in the sense that your lifestyle completely changes. Like, there are no more crowds. You got to figure out how to get that high in another way. And I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know how to focus on parts of me because everything had always been centered around basketball. And it wasn't just who I thought I was, but even when I walked out, people knew me as Rushia, the basketball player. So even when I wanted to get away from it, they still came back to that. So it was really hard trying to identify who I was and what I wanted. But it took time for me to figure out. So basketball and me walking away from that just really magnified the fact that I had to deal with me and some issues I had as a child too, and just trying my self-worth and understanding who I was and what I brought to the table, and not just being somebody that, anybody could depend on. That's what I've always been.
Wow. So what was that first, I found a way to make money after basketball and I'm starting to understand some other ways that I can bring value to the world. What was that first venture for you?
Just like I said, when I went to the Boys and Girls Club and I was just helping my girlfriend out, she was the executive director, and she was like, well, you can come play with these kids. I don't have a gym director. And I was like, okay, I'll come down there and hang out with the kids. So I would spend 3 days out of the week helping her with the kids at the gym. And then parents would ask me to train their kids, and I turned into Overtime Basketball Academy. So I started organizing camps and clinics because that was my comfort zone. I knew basketball better than anything. And then as I spent time with the kids, I learned that they weren't balanced. I needed to help them understand that they were student athletes. I wanted to teach them how to be balanced on and off the court. So then we talked about character building and self-esteem. So I started a nonprofit where I worked on those attributes. And then it got to the point where people would ask me to come out and speak. So I started doing speaking engagements. And my mom loves cooking, so I started a catering company for her. My brother and I have always mentored the youth. So we started a magazine called Young Black Entrepreneur, which is an educational platform to teach our youth to start their own businesses and how they can have creative experiences that prepare them for that. So I've always just stayed in the realm of doing the things that I love. And now I ended up here in Las Vegas doing just that, because I started also the Women's Professional Basketball Alumni Association, which helps the women who've played professionally to transition into real life. I told you about my struggles, and once I had conversations with other women, I learned that we all have the same issues, and we do much better when we can support one another and not feel like we're isolated. And Bill Lambier, who actually called me last January and said, listen, I want you on my team. And we talked about it because we want to give the current players an opportunity to have these experiences as well, so they can know about the transition before they actually have to transition.
It's so funny when you think your problems are different, right? Everyone thinks their problems are different.
Like,
and then
nobody will understand.
That organization must be really helping them realize, pretty much comes down to the fact that we all have the same underlying things that we've got to work on, no matter how they're taking shape in our lives. And I imagine you probably talked to those women a lot about that transition. What were some of the challenges that you saw that you're now kind of educating people on when you go from one particular type of career transition, which was being an athlete, to something else? What were some of the challenges that you encountered?
Before we get into that, I want to let you know that I am very, very excited about a big upcoming event that is soon to be this December. If you've been tuning in, you might know that the date is December 10th, and that is the day of the launch of my next book, Good Morning, Good Life. I know so many of you have been asking, when is it coming? Where is it going to be? What's going on? And I just want to quickly tell you right now in this moment that if you head over to goodmorninggoodlife.com and you sign up for updates, you will be able to find out when the book is coming out, when you can get more details about it, when the planner is available, when the audiobook is available, and all that fun stuff that's going to be happening with my new book that I'm so excited is finally almost here. Oh my gosh, this process has been insane just to bring this to your grubby little paws. But head over to goodmorninggoodlife.com so that you don't miss any details about the book when it's out. I know that you're thinking about getting it to help you start your year off right. 2020 is right around the corner, but it might also be the perfect gift for somebody that you love. And so you're going to be able to get your hands on it just in time for the holiday season. So again, goodmorninggoodlife.com, sign up for email updates, and I will keep you posted on the launch of my new book. Now, back to that conversation with Rushia.
Well, understanding that next field in the industry, like you just got to make sure that you do your research. And a lot of times people think, oh, I can do this, it'll be fine, because you see it, and maybe other people make it look so easy. But does your skill set really align with that? And if it does, you got to go all in. Like a lot of times we, as women primarily, will minimize our gift and our talent because we don't want to feel like we're bragging or boasting. But if you're really good at something, you got to dive into it and make sure that you push yourself. So you just got to know your market, understand who the thought leaders are, read, research, do as much as you can, and then look at your transferable skills. Make sure that you understand how this looks in this industry and how you need to change the verbiage to make it line up for something else in another industry. Yeah. And just pulling all those different things out, because if you are in love with one space, I'll say this, a lot of times we think we can only have one passion, but when you get ready to transition to something, you'll be propelled to follow it and to do great things, but you have got to make sure that you know your stuff. Because when Rushia, the basketball player, walks into a room, there's no question that I can talk about the game and I know the game. But as a basketball player, people also limit me in a professional space. So I have to make sure that I'm well educated on whatever that realm is. And so I advise everyone to make sure, like, education is key, just knowing your stuff.
Yeah, I imagine you probably had to deal with that a lot, that there's scenarios specifically in yours where people already know something about you. It's pretty well known about you. And it's like, oh, that's what she is.
That's who she is.
And so not only are we good at putting ourselves in boxes, but other people are now doing it for you as well. Being well-read, being educated, researching your thing, so important. How else can you combat that? How else can you have somebody looking at you and making their assumptions about you? How can you start to break that down even more?
You just really have to walk it. I have been in spaces, just because as an athlete, athletes are the most, what's the word? I'll just say we're looked at from the shoulders down. There's a huge stereotype as for athletes and what we tend to be, and people never give us credit for being smart. And when I walk into a room, people want to say Rushia, the basketball player. And before, it used to bother me because I wanted to move beyond that. But I learned to switch that around and say, okay, this is going to get me in the door. But once I get in, I need to show you all the other attributes I have and why I am an asset to whatever project that we're trying to work on. So I think just making sure that, you let people do them, but your walk has to be sufficient.
I just love that you point that out, because it's funny. It's kind of like the branding problem that you don't have a brand. And then when you do, it's like, oh, is that what I want people saying about me? Also, we can work on that. It's okay if it's not exactly the right thing. I find myself in that situation. People are like, this is my friend Amy. She's a YouTuber. And then it's just like, yes, that's 100% correct. But there's all these other things that go into it. And it's just like, it's the battle that you have to keep fighting, and you just have to take everything in stride, but also realize, okay, but how else can we start to change the way people think about it and the way they can talk about it?
And the thing that's tough, Amy, is that no matter what you say, you can say the same thing to 20 different people, and 20 different people will say something different when they leave. So what you have to do is just make sure you're comfortable with what's being said and that you control the narrative. And people are going to think what they think, but you do your best to make sure
Absolutely.
that your work represents who you are.
And when it's wrong, you just say, oh, actually, that's incorrect.
Yeah, that's not right. Don't be afraid to correct people.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that goes back to what you were saying about we don't want to boast, we don't want to brag, and we also don't want to be confrontational. So it's just like, no, like it's who you are, it's who you're going to be. And if you believe in it and you're believing in it enough to do it, then just well-informed people so that they know you're well-informed.
Absolutely.
Love that. Did you find, because you started all these things, I mean, it's amazing because they all seem to have a continuing thread of how much you like to help people. Did you ever find that you were starting something that wasn't your passion yet, but the more that you got into it, it became something you became passionate about? Because I think that there's this conversation around lean into your passion, go after your passion. People don't even know what their passion is.
That's the tough part, because a lot of people haven't figured it out yet. And I think I get to have a good time with it because the young ladies that I work with now at the Las Vegas Aces, because my job is to help them figure that thing out. It's just figure out what you like. What are you doing in your spare time? What is the thing that you make time to do? They have practice. So when you have your free time, what is it you're doing? I have a young lady that was a really good friend of mine, my friend from Columbus that I told you about.
Oh, yeah.
We played together and she was always reading. And the thing that we learned was she needed to be in literacy. And so even now she's in literacy. And the thing, it's not hard. Like a lot of people try and make, oh my God, it's got to be a big deal. No, what do you love? What are the things that you do in your spare time? And that'll be the thing that you can try and manipulate and cause a situation where you can monetize it. So I don't try and think too hard about it. It's just, I love kids. I love basketball. I love seeing people happy. And it's manifested in so many different ways. And I'm sure as life progresses and I move forward, there will be other things that I'll be led into because I can use my platform to help somebody.
Love that. Such good advice. Thank you so much, Rushia. I'd love to ask some details about your day-to-day, such as your mornings when you wake up in the morning. What time does it look like usually, and what is your routine?
I am probably the worst person in the world. I have terrible sleeping habits.
What are your sleeping habits? Let's break that down.
I just go to bed whenever I'm tired, but I tend to wake up at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning because I can't sleep through the night, and I'll probably get up and do some work, and then I will go back to sleep and maybe get up at 6:37 and then read some emails and get up. And here recently, my daughter and I are doing a jump rope challenge with my friends. So we'll get up and do like 400 jump ropes.
Oh my
and then we'll have
gosh.
breakfast, and then I've got to go to work. So it's just fun and just trying to make sure she's included.
Love that. I love that. What's her name?
Morgan.
Shout out to Morgan.
Yay,
What do
Morgie.
you tend to do for fitness nowadays? Like, what do you do to stay fit or just kind of keep yourself feeling healthy?
You know, I spend a lot of time in the gym with the girls. And so there will be times I don't practice with them. Every now and then, like about 2 weeks ago, Kelsey Plum, our point guard, had me out there playing defense on her. My knees swole up. But I will be in the gym when they're watching video, and I'll just do some court work for about 30-45 minutes.
Yeah.
Just take some time.
Are they always trying to rope you into something like,
Oh,
come,
no.
come
They
play?
know I'll give them the no. I'm too old. Do not ask me out here. But one day, Kelsey kind of pushed a button, so I got out there with her.
Oh, boy.
I won't do that again, though.
What do you do for a little bit of self-care? Maybe not something every day, maybe something like once a month, once a week, whatever you would consider Rushia time. What does that look like?
You know, I am really bad at this, but I just started. Last week, I went to the spa, took some time off for myself. A girlfriend of mine was in town, and she's like, yeah, let's go to the spa. She saw it in my eyes and my shoulders, so we spent some time. But normally, I'll just sit on my back patio, drink my juice, and just relax. First thing in the morning would be really good for me, just to get my day started with some positivity. I like to read positive books or just affirmations, and I'll have stuff stuck around the house. So I just try and make sure that I keep pouring positivity into myself and my minion.
So do you have any suggestions of things that you've read maybe lately or something that just comes to mind that was super inspirational or mindset shifting for you?
You know what? I haven't read it yet, but it was brought up in a session that I was in, and I want to read Brag. Somebody told me about that book, and I can't remember the name. I haven't written
I'm gonna have
down
to look that up
the
and link
author,
it.
but the name of it is Brag. So that's my next read.
Okay.
And as far as something that I've read recently, I have some friends that have written some books, but I primarily read like quotes. I go on YouTube and I listen to different videos and just things like that. So while I'm getting dressed, I can have something playing in the background.
Love that. Is there anyone that inspires you in terms of style?
I am a fashion faux pas. No, I do not. I like clothes and I like to look good, but I can't put pieces together. So, and it's funny because Kelly Schumacher Raymond, who's the assistant coach on our team, she is a shopper. So she'd be like, Rue, this will look good on you. This will look good on you. So yesterday I spoke and I had on this purple short suit. And she has the same one. She was like, okay, I'm going to get it and you try it too. And I was like, okay. So she I guess she's
You
my
have somebody
stylist.
working for you. This is great.
I just thought about it right now. It's funny. Kelly Schumacher Raymond is my stylist.
Wonderful. We're gonna give her a shout out. I love that. She's like, oh my gosh, like I just got a promotion there. Okay, good. Do you listen to any podcasts or anything?
Nothing over and over.
Yeah.
You know,
Just
like I'll find
spontaneous.
one and then I'll listen to it. I'm like, okay.
So you're
that's
like
cool.
a title chooser. Like
Yeah.
you're like, oh, that sounds interesting.
Yeah.
I like that.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Just whatever space I'm in at the time. If
Yeah.
I find something that speaks to me, I'll listen to that.
Cool. All right. Well, I want to ask you my final question, but first, can you share where everyone can follow you online? Keep you up with all the things you're doing.
Okay, my social media is on Facebook, Rushia Brown Speaks, Instagram, Rushia B, RUSHIAB, Twitter, Rushia B. What else is there? LinkedIn, Rushia Brown MBA.
Awesome. In just a couple minutes, I'd love to challenge you to the secret show if you're up for it.
Okay.
You guys can hear that over in Shine Squad. That's at patreon.com/AMYTV. But first, what does it mean to you to go after the life you want?
It just means not being afraid to say yes to my own dreams. I have a tendency to do everything for everyone else, but the life that I want means making sure that I'm happy, making sure that my daughter has the best representation of success. It means not being afraid to ask for what I want and put myself on a platform to be successful.
Love that. Rushia Brown, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, Amy.
All right, let's catch the deets on this conversation. First, it can be therapeutic to turn your hobby into a career. Rushia talked about looking at basketball as an escape, and when she realized she could make money from that hobby, her world totally changed. See what you can do to take your hobby to the next level. You'll get that creative release by practicing the hobby and even making some money on the side. So really what we're talking about here is making sure that you know for a fact that this is a thing that you want to do. And that's why you might feel that a hobby is starting to become more all-encompassing, more of your focal point. And use that to push you to have the motivation to stick with it, go full on, and take it on as a potential new career move. Next, education is key. When you're looking for the next step in your career, it can be easy for people to limit you based on your past careers. What you do to combat that is important. You want to beat down those assumptions. Learn everything you can about what you want and don't stop going after it. And finally, sometimes your passion may not be what you expect it to be. If you feel discouraged or like you can't find the thing that really makes you happy, think about what you're doing in your spare time. What are you really making time for? No matter how small that thing is, it might be the right thing and you should follow it. Sometimes we don't even let ourselves feel those feelings. Like, what genuinely brings you joy? And maybe you have only done it once ever or once a year, or definitely not enough to further explore it. But if you made a point to, it could be that next big thing, that thing that completely changes your mindset, changes your motivation, changes your entire path ahead of you. Lean into what those things are. When you find that glimmer of excitement and hope, you may have started to scratch the surface on that passion. Okay, that's it for this episode. Make sure you check all the details in the show notes for Rushia's socials. She is fabulous, and I want you to go follow her and let her know that you tuned in. By the way, do you love getting advice straight to your earbuds? I'd like to show you some simple steps for living your best life every day. And that's in my free audio training, The 7 Essential Details for Going After the Life That You Want. To receive this audiogram, just subscribe to the podcast and take a screenshot to show me that you have subscribed. You can email that screenshot to hello@detailspodcast.com. That's hello@detailspodcast.com with audiogram, please, in the subject line, and we will get that audiogram right over to you. You can also listen to Rushia's secret podcast today over in Shine Squad at patreon.com/AMYTV. Like I said, I've told you guys a million times, I do a new 1 to 5 minute podcast every weekday morning that might motivate you to going after the life that you want. And it's if you are in Patreon at any level, just join the squad at patreon.com/AMYTV and subscribe to the podcast that is only for those members. That's all for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate it as always. If you would like to discover even more actionable details, head over to AMYTV by visiting youtube.com/AMYTV, or you can search for AMYTV in the YouTube app. Remember, subscribe for good vibes, kiss the ones you love, and go after the life that you want. Cheers.